And you've worked in education for some time now. You're a big supporter of public education. You mentioned treating the whole child. And if you had free reign to reform public education in Michigan and like set a standard for the rest of the country, what does that look like? And where do things like private schools, charter schools, voucher programs fit in, or do they at all?
Yeah, I think public education is key, and it's even more so that we see it post COVID-19. Because when COVID happened, we saw a lot of kids were not in school anymore, and people saw the social emotional effect that it had on kids. Kids were going hungry, right? Because a lot of kids get their meals from school, right? And they didn't have that benefit of actually seeing those people that they see as role models in their life. And what I've learned in education and in my profession, working on the court end of criminal justice, and I worked several years in the juvenile justice and worked on juvenile justice reform for the state of Michigan as well. And I'm going to tell you that what I've seen is that there's two things that a child needs that in order to be successful. We all know it. All the fancy universities come in, give us all the data. It's they need one stable adult and they need education. Those two things. And sometimes school can provide. Well, in many instances, schools will provide that. They'll give you that teacher, that bus driver, the janitor, somebody who listens to you and who is that stable adult and getting you that education so that you can expand your horizons and start to think about what you can do. Now, when we look at public education in Michigan, if I had free reign, we need more funding. We did get record funding this year, which I am very appreciative of. As a school board trustee elected here in a large school district, we very much appreciated that money, but it's not enough, right? It costs more to teach a child now more than it ever has. And if I get to Congress, one of the things that I really want to push for is more funding at the federal level for local school districts. Specifically, special education, we are way underfunded. There's an act called the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, was passed years ago. It's supposed to fund special education at 100%. It's funded at about 40% from the federal government. So we need more funding for that. The ESSER dollars. So these were the secondary elementary education dollars that we got post COVID. This was the money that the federal government set aside so that we could help get kids back on track. We could get them a social emotional help. We could get them up on the learning loss, summer tutoring programs, after school tutoring programs, laptops so that they can take and have programs to work on when they go home for breaks so they don't have any learning loss. Those kinds of things. Those funds were cut after Biden administration left into the Trump administration. And the Trump administration is further trying to dismantle the Department of Education. And what does that even look like? Because we need our Department of Education, we need our funding, we need our dollars, right, in order to be successful. So education is the key. And when I look at charter schools, voucher programs, those kinds of things, charter schools in and of are existing in and of themselves, but they receive public education dollars. The difference with a charter school though is that as a public school district, we have to treat the whole child. We have to provide for all kids, regardless. We got to provide them an education, rightfully so. Charters can pick and choose. They can decide not to and send them back to the public schools, but yet they take our public funding education dollars. A lot of the private schools, people send their kids to private schools for religious purposes, which I'm, no problem with that. And I think that it's an option for the parents that they can have. But I think when we look at voucher programs as well, I don't like those because it takes our public funded dollars and it puts them in private schools. And I don't think that has a place for it. So I think, when we look at public education, it's key. We got to make sure we're treating the whole child and that we're getting all the funds that we need at the federal and the state level.